There we go. All right. So, welcome to the virtual home buying seminar. And I'm really excited to have you guys in today. And we do have some people that are on and excited to learn, it looks like, for how to buy a house, really, is what it's all about. It's not only house, it could be property, it can be anything. But we have some panelists today. They're going to be helping us out. We've got Tori McKim from Union Home Mortgage. She is a lender. And we've also got Laura Coy and Ryan Coy will be joining us as well from ProPrecise Property Inspections, my favorite inspectors in the biz. So this is a picture of our Miss Laura and Ryan and all their kiddos. Can you guys see that? I think it's a great picture.
It is.
And then it's not clicking through for me. All right. And then we've got Tori McKim and myself, just so that you guys know when we're talking, who's talking. So, all right. So today, what we're going to cover is just some simple stuff. We're going to talk about the home buying process, the steps that it takes to get you from A to Z in home buying. So there's a lot of in-betweens. There's a lot of players. The other day I did a live video and we talked a little bit about if there was a three-legged stool, what each three legs on the stool are and how they represent the important key players in a home buying process. And that's really important for you to know when you go into this. We're going to talk about working with a lender, different types of loans that you can get with your lender, pre-approvals. We are going to talk about staging and how that affects what you see on the internet. We're going to talk about home inspections. What are they? Why are they there? The difference between a home inspection and an appraisal. And we're also going to do a market update because, to be honest with you, everybody wants to know what in the world is going on in this housing industry right now. Are we facing a recession? Is it like 2008? Where are we at? So we are definitely going to talk about that as well. So, all right, moving on. The home buying process from A to Z. So the very first thing you want to do, and I'm just going to say real quick, this is not our usual way of doing a home buyer seminar. We usually do them in person. We go to a restaurant or somewhere where we can all get together and we provide you food and drinks, and it's a lot more interactive. So this is the first time that we're all doing a virtual seminar, and it's new to us. So forgive us if we don't answer any questions that you may have. Please post your questions here in the webinar, and I'll be able to see them, and I'll make sure they get answered. Or you can contact me afterwards. My phone number is there at the bottom. Just shoot me a text, and I'll make sure that if the question's not for me, if it's for Tori or if it's for Ryan or Laura at home inspections, I will make sure they get the info so that you can connect with them directly. So the whole purpose of this home buying seminar is to give you the tools and the information that you need to go forward and buying a home right now in today's market. That doesn't mean you have to buy a home today. It could be tomorrow, it could be 6 months from now, it could be a year from now. But the purpose here is we want you to know everything you're gonna need to know to move forward in buying a home. And there is quite a bit. So the very first thing that you're gonna need to do is you need to find a real estate agent. There are a lot of us out there, but we are not all created equal. So interview a couple of agents. You'll know when you find the right agent for you because it's going to feel right. It's like walking into a home for the first time and you know this is the house that you want to buy. You'll feel it. You'll feel comfortable with them. You'll feel a bond or a trust. And you'll know when you interview the right agent that you have the right agent for you. There's also a lot that has to do with the ability of the agent to represent your best interest. A lot of times we get compared to used car salesmen. And I don't know why. But I'm guessing it's because there are some agents out there that are worried about their own best interest over yours. And we need to make sure that you find an agent who has your best interest truly at heart. So that's very important. So once you find an agent, you're going to sit down and have a consult. That's kind of exactly what we're doing right here, is having a consult. And I'm gonna well, no, you can't see it anyway. I'll show you guys at the end of the video here, but I have a folder that I'm going to hold up for you and show you. Can you guys see my screen here? Tori, can you see me?
I can see.
Okay. So maybe our people can see me too because we're panelists or whatever, but this is the folder that you're going to get when we sit down and we have a consult. And there's a bunch of information in this folder. I call it, it's your golden folder. It's your home buying Bible. You want to carry that with you when you go see houses. You know, when you're talking to your lender, when you're talking to your home inspector, you'll get a folder from them too. But this folder is going to carry you through the whole process. So when you sit down, you have a consultation. And again, that's kind of what this is, but we would have a one-on-one consultation so that I can get to know your needs a little bit better. We would get in contact, you would get a folder, and then we go from there. And that consultation would kind of go into more detail from what we're talking about right now. So let's talk about a little bit after you have your consultation and you find your agent and you kind of have all the tools that you need. What's your next step? The next step is you got to go get your pre-approval done. And so there's a timeline between getting your pre-approval and moving into your new house. And the average there is about 60 to 90 days. And most of that is actually finding the house process. I'd say about half of it is finding the house and the other half of it is being in contract for that house. So when the next step after we have our consultation is you're going to call Tori and you're going to get a pre-approval. And I'm actually going to flip it over to Tori and she's going to explain all about pre-approvals and why that's so important. And we're going to go into that next step. So go ahead, Tori. I'm going to move on to your slide here.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Awesome. Of course, my screen is jamming up. There we go.
I see.
All right. So yeah, thanks everybody for attending. Hope you guys are all staying healthy and sane out there. So, you know, why do you want to get pre-approved is a huge question people ask me, or do I really need it? And 100% yes, you need to get pre-approved. Pre-approval is going to tell you not only what a good purchase price range is for you, but also what type of loan you're going to want to look at, what your monthly payment might be, how much you're going to need down, is your credit in good shape. The last thing you want is to be out looking at houses with Nicole, fall in love with one, and either realize, you know, it's above what you're pre-approved for, or, you know, you didn't want that high of a payment, or you have work to do on your credit and you didn't know it. So you want to have a pre-approval. Also, in this crazy market we're in, it's still, you know, a hot real estate market out there. A lot of sellers are not going to allow you in the house, especially with the quarantine, if you are not pre-approved. They want to know if they're letting you in the house, you know, getting out, making sure it's cleaned up, that you actually could potentially put in an offer. Hi, Ryan. So, you know, it's very important. So when I sit down to do a pre-approval, what am I going to look at? I'm going to look at your credit. That's a big one. We are going to look at your credit. We are going to look at your employment history. We are going to look at what assets you have. So how much do you have to put down? How much do you have to work with total? Sometimes you may have $50K in the bank, but you don't want to use that all. So that's very important for me to know. We're going to talk about your goals. What do you want your payment to be? What, you know, do you want out of pocket? Is there, you know, are you looking at a home that needs work? So we may need to do a certain type of loan program if the home is not in perfect condition, things like that. So we're going to look at all of that. You know, I explained a little bit why pre-approvals are so important. Another thing is there is a difference, and this is confusing to consumers in the market, between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. And sometimes lenders use those terms interchangeably, but they are not interchangeable. A pre-qual is where you would maybe call me, say, hey, I want to look at houses. I may run your credit, and I'll pretty much ask you, you know, what's your employment? What is, you know, what money do you have to work with? And then as long as everything looks pretty good, I'll send you a pre-qual, meaning, yeah, I think you'd be good to go. I don't do pre-qualifications because there's too many factors left undone there. There's too many things that could still go wrong. So my pre-qual, or my pre-approvals, I'm sorry, take a little longer than a pre-qual, but I still usually get them done in 24 to 48 hours, unless you have some crazy situations, which is okay. We work through those too. But what I'm going to do is run credit, get your information, and then we're going to collect your documents. So for most people, what those documents are, because I get asked this question a lot too, is pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, and bank statements. You do have some one-offs if you've been divorced, or if you've had a foreclosure or a bankruptcy, or if you're self-employed. But I make it really simple. We have a portal you can upload them to. I give you an exact list. But why I collect those documents is because as an average consumer, you're not knowing what I'm looking for. So I use this example a lot. It was one of me and Nicole's clients, actually. He was pre-approved at a different bank, or I should say pre-qualled at a different bank, thought he was good to go, came to me for a second opinion. And when I collected his documents, And I saw his pay stubs. I saw they were from a temp agency. So he had just told me he worked in accounting, gave me the name of the business. In his head, he does work there. He was not lying, not trying to do anything fishy. He just didn't know to tell me that it was through a temp agency. And in lending, that's looked at very differently. So luckily he got hired in full time. We got him a home. It all worked out. But he could have spent money on inspections, appraisals, you know, taken the house off the market for the sellers, you know, maybe put his notice in at his apartment and then got through the process. And when the underwriter would look at the pay stubs, they would have been like, nope, deny the loan. So the fact that I do my due diligence and make sure what to look for, you know, on your documents is super important. And that's a true pre-approval and everything's been reviewed. And it's not always to catch bad things. I also had a gentleman pre-approved somewhere else, came to me for a second opinion because he wanted to go to a higher purchase price. They never asked him if he worked overtime and they didn't look at his pay stubs. So they didn't know that almost half of his income, I mean, he worked almost 80 hours a week. So he had like almost 40 hours a week in overtime. So we could pre-approve him way higher than they did, but they didn't take the time to ask the questions or look at the documents. So that's why a pre-approval is super important. You want to know what you're getting into. So I kind of mentioned the documents you would need. You know, so it's always good to try to gather those up, but I'll obviously make an exact list for you, make it really easy. It's also important, there is lots of different loan programs out there. So you want to make sure your lender is taking the time to make sure the loan program you're in meets your goals. There, you know, the two big ones everybody talks about, and the two I'll just kind of explain here to you are FHA and conventional. FHA loans allow for a little riskier borrowers, so a little lower credit score, not as much down usually. They're not bad loans by any means. I do a ton of them. But you do have PMI, which is private mortgage insurance for the life of the loan. And, you know, a lot of times they have a little higher interest rate, things like that. So, you know, it's a great loan program for certain people. But there's also conventional, which usually you need a little higher credit score. Sometimes you need a little more down, although we do have a 3% conventional that's awesome. So sometimes, you know, lenders will just throw you in an FHA loan because it's easier to pre-approve people for. But that doesn't always mean it's the best program. If you qualify conventional, you're going to have PMI on there if you don't put 20% down, but that goes away when you hit 20% equity. Plus, you're usually going to have a lower interest rate, things like that. So, you know, conventional sometimes is the route to go, especially if you're looking at a fixer-upper. FHA is more strict on appraisals. And I know I'm talking fast here because we're on a webinar today. But it's important to make sure you're in the right loan program, and there is tons out there. I don't kind of like to throw them all out and confuse you, because once I would talk to you, we would sit down and you know, maybe there is one or two loan programs that would be best for you, and we can look at both of those options. But you know, loan programs are so specific, and that's why you need to make sure you have a lender that's going to take the time to make sure that you are in the right loan program for you, not just the one that's easiest to qualify for. So that's kind of, I'm so sorry, I've got something coming in here. Let me send that to voicemail. Sorry about that, guys. So that is kind of the types of loan programs. Nicole, I don't know, can you see, are there any questions coming in, or is that kind of everybody being quiet over there?
I will look really quickly if I can. There we go. Got out of that. I do not see any questions at the current moment, but I will say, I wanted to ask you really quickly while we can here is, we talked about, we kind of skipped through it, but documents needed for pre-approval. Now I know it's going to be different for everybody, but just so that people can know when they call you, some of the items you might look at is you might look at W-2s, right? And what are a couple of other things that you're going to look at for pre-approval?
Yeah. W-2s, 1 month of pay stubs, 2 years of tax returns, and 2 months of bank statements, and then your driver's license. So those are the basics that we need on almost every loan. And then, like I mentioned, there are some one-offs, but for most people, unless you're self-employed or, you know, have a little bit different situation, like, you know, disability or Social Security, those are the main items you usually need.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come back up to us here. Hey, look, here we are. I stopped sharing. I don't see any questions at the current moment, but again, for all of you that are in here, make sure that if you do have any questions, my number is on the screen. Tori's number is on the screen. You can text. or call or whatever that you feel you need to do to get a hold of one of us. I'm going to try and switch over here to the PowerPoint version because I was on a different version and I don't think I was getting exactly where I wanted to be with everybody seeing this. So sorry, panelists and attendees. I'm going to go back over to here. All right, sharing screen again. Let's see if this works. All right, how are we looking?
Yep, I can see it.
We see it? Can we see that? All right. Okay, good. There we go. All right. So thank you, Tori. I appreciate everything and you going through all that lending stuff. If you guys have any questions for Tori, I'm going to go back here. Again, if you have any questions for Tori about lending and specifically how it applies to you as far as lending goes, and I will say this, we didn't really talk about the current market, what's going on today as much, but there are zero down programs. However, and I know a lot of you have asked me about these zero down programs. Because of the coronavirus and where we're at in the market today with these zero down programs, a lot of them are being suspended or put on hold for now, just till this coronavirus passes, just because it's a riskier loan to put no money down and to buy a house without any equity in it. And obviously a bunch of things behind the scenes the big banks know about that we don't. They are available though. And you know, if you reach out to Tori today and that's going to be your loan option, it may not be right now, but it's still something that you can reach out to her, you can discuss with her, and when things clear up, and we don't know when that's going to be, when things clear up, she can get you there. As far as what's available right now, the programs that are available right now, you can go as low as 3% down, correct? 3% down. There are VA loans and things like that still available, and I'm sure that if you wanted to reach out to Tori and ask specifically what loan can I qualify for right now, her number's right there. It's 330-806-4585. Send her a text, whatever you need, set up an appointment with her, and she will tell you exactly what you need to know that and how it personally applies to you. So, cool. All right, so I'm going to move on here. We talked a little bit about the first couple of steps in the home buying process, but I realized I didn't really tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Nicole Ward. I am a realtor. I live in North Canton, and I used to live in Cuyahoga Falls. So I know anywhere all in between. I actually grew up in Lakewood, up in Cleveland. So pretty much all over Northeast Ohio. My husband and I are a real estate team, and we do things together, and we cover all areas, Akron, Canton, Cleveland. So, you know, if you ever need anything, you can reach out to either one of us. We're the key group. And so we love what we do. I've closed many, many, many homes. I've worked with Tori many, many, many times. And Ryan and Laura, who are at the bottom there on the screen, if you can see them, they're my home inspectors. I wouldn't go anywhere else unless I was forced to, which sometimes I am. But if I'm not forced to, I'm going to give you all Ryan's number because he's the best home inspector there is. It's like, you know, basic stuff. But we did, so going back to, and I'm sorry, I keep getting off track, but going back to the first couple of steps there, we talked about the very first thing that you need to do is you need to find a realtor. You need to get in a relationship with a realtor. You need to be working with a realtor. The second thing you need to do is you need to get your pre-approval. After that, after you have your pre-approval, you're looking at about 45 to 90 days to purchase a home. And those first 45 days is most likely you searching for a home. So that's what you and I are going to do. We're going to search for a home. We're going to go look at houses. The average amount of houses I show someone before they buy a home is 7 to 10. If I'm showing you 25 houses, something's not right. You're either, you might have a champagne taste on a beer budget and you want something that you can't afford, or maybe there's truly just nothing out there at this time that you're going to be willing to buy, and you might need to be buying during a different market, not right now. But if it's going to be out there, we're going to find it for you within 7 to 10 houses is the typical. We can go outside of that. That's not a problem. It's not going to be a big deal, but that's the average. So something to think about. After we find you a house, and we're going to find you a house, I'm going to set you up on a portal. The portal is really cool. It's a personalized access into my access into the MLS. So you're going to see all the homes that I can see as a realtor. It's much, much, much more reliable than Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. Most of those websites are third-party websites, and they're not going to give you accurate information. but I'm going to set you up on this portal. We're going to find the house. Let's say we find the house of your dreams. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make an offer on that house. We're going to negotiate it. Now, 10 years ago, in 2010, negotiations were hardcore. Houses were listed at 200,000 and people were negotiating them down to 150. It was just nuts. It was just a crazy time to buy houses. It's flip-flop now. The ratio of what a house is listed at versus what it sells for is so close, and if not flipped. So if a house is listed at 200,000, we're seeing them being sold for 210, 215, 220. That's just the way the market is right now, and people are competing. So for every one house that's available, we've got 10 buyers that are making an offer on it. And it's not saying that you're overpaying for these houses, because they still have to appraise in order for you to buy it. So you still have to be able to, from a lending standpoint, that the lender is going to determine, is the house worth what you're paying for it before you're allowed to get a loan on it. So you are protected in some ways. But we're going to make an offer, we're going to negotiate on it, and we're going to get you under contract. Now a contract is going to be about 20 pages long. A lot of people think when you make a bid on a house, you're just calling them like, I want to bid 200. But it doesn't work like that. We have to have all of those finer details as a part of the bid and the contract up front. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about, do you want a home inspection? I'm going to tell you, yes, you want a home inspection. And we're going to say, you have a certain amount of time to get that done. Usually it's about 10 days. But all of this is going to be put in the contract up front. You're going to know exactly what you're getting into. Let's say that everybody agrees we got you under contract for this house. I'm going to go back to this home inspection thing. Once you agree on a contract, it's official, you're under contract. That means that house is taken off the market as active status. Nobody can swoop in underneath you and offer a better deal at that point. If you're under contract, the house is yours until something happens and it falls apart. However, the contract is contingent upon or subject to your home inspections. Always. So always with me, at least. So that means that you are not locked into this contract. You're not locked into buying this house until you've had your home inspection done and you've agreed to the condition of the house after your home inspection, or you're negotiating some repairs. So that could kind of put a wall that you have to climb over during your contract process. I'm going to switch it over here to Ryan so that he can kind of explain the home inspection process. And I will tell you this, before you call Ryan and get everything set up and you're going to go through all these things with Ryan, just know that you may have 10 days to get your home inspection completed, but that doesn't mean you wait until day 8 to call Ryan, because Ryan's a very busy man, just like all of these other home inspectors are right now. Once we get you into contract, you call Ryan day 1 and you say, I'm under contract, I need to schedule a home inspection. And he's going to put you on the schedule. So just wanted to clarify that for you. So I'm going to switch it over here to Ryan and Laura. And you guys, this is Ryan and Laura. This is a little page I made for them, but go for it, you guys.
Nice. Hey, everyone. Like Nicole said, I'm Ryan Coy. This is my wife, Laura. We team it up at ProPrecise as well. So I handle the inspections, some phones with clients if need be, and Laura's doing all those things that are needed in the background as far as admin, and she schedules with our clients as well. So happy to be here in this virtual world we're living in today. But just briefly, a lot of times we'll get a call from clients and they've never had a home inspection or been through this process. The industry is fairly new, dating back to the 80s, but even early 2000s, not everyone was having home inspections done when they purchased their home. So the home inspection is primarily, it's an overall assessment of the condition of the property at the time of the inspection. A few key points here would be that it's non-invasive. We're doing certain things. We may remove an attic access hatch or an access for plumbing in bathrooms, but we are not removing trim off the baseboard to find certain things. We're not going to, you know, it's still the seller's home, so it has to be non-invasive. And we're looking at all those major systems and components at the time of the inspection. And what it does, and I think you touched on this, Nicole, but it primarily does three things for you. And I always touch on this with our clients is, A, you have your home inspection, it was contingent, your offer and the contract's contingent on the inspection. Maybe everything's great. Maybe you're okay with some minor things and you press go, move forward with the original contract, release contingencies. B would be, we show up and maybe there's some safety issues, or the furnace isn't functioning properly, or there's damage at the roof. Option B is there's no guarantee, and I always try to tell people there's no guarantee, you know, that the seller's going to do or fix anything, but option B could be, now you have this report, which is a legal document stating that there's a problem and it may allow you to negotiate certain items. And option C, which is what nobody wants, would be, we've got something serious going on that you were unaware of, and that report will allow you to walk from the home inspection.
Yep.
So that's a general overview of what that inspection is. And some of these next few slides just are the systems and components that are inspected during a general inspection. And this is all talking about a general home inspection. There's other options as far as some ancillary services that certain inspectors might offer or that you might go elsewhere for. But your major systems and components would be the roof, the exterior, the structure, electrical, plumbing, heating, cooling, interior items. You know, we're going to look at any appliances in the home and operate those, running water at sinks and filling tubs and checking outlets, windows, doors. So all of this gets a good, we get a good view at these things. We gather all this information on site at the time of the inspection, and then it'll all get updated into the report. And as far as that report goes, it varies from inspector to inspector. We're still seeing paper handwritten reports with no photos. Most of the inspectors out there operating today are using some type of report that's electronic that they send to their clients after the inspection. Should include some photos. It'll include descriptions of those systems, so you have an idea moving into your home how old the furnace is, the model and brands of particular components and appliances in the home, and then obviously any reportable defects or issues that were noted. Some of those other services that I touched about briefly, and I apologize, the slide looks skewed here, at least on my end, but options, and this is just your level of risk that you're willing to take, would be, you know, pest inspections or wood destroying insect inspection. That's separate from a general. It requires a separate license. Not all home inspectors do those inspections. You may have to call a pest company, but we can include that in a package that we put together specific to your needs. Some other ones, radon testing, which is a good idea here in Ohio at least, to know the level of radon in the home, and it could be a potential negotiating factor. Sewer scopes are another one that we can do. Some people choose to test for mold. Some people, and I don't see it often, but moving into an older home may contact an environmental specialist and have lead-based paint, you know, tested. So there's multiple avenues as far as inspections, but your general is the bread and butter, obviously, and some of those other ones are optional. But and I talked briefly about the report. Everyone's report's gonna vary, be a little different, and every inspector is going to there's going to be a difference in between each inspector that's operating in our area, what they inspect, what they don't inspect. We all should be. So Ohio's working towards licensing, and we are licensed, we are grandfathered in, and there's a lot of inspectors who are. We're not quite there yet, but everybody operating should be operating off of some standard of practice, whether it be from ASHI or InterNACHI. Those are just home inspection associations, and they lay out a clear standard of what we're required to inspect, any limitations or things that we're not required to inspect, or ways and certain tools and things like that that we should be using. So this is obvious. If you're going to get a tattoo, are you going to go spend $100 or are you going to spend $400? It's on you forever. You know, how much are you willing to risk? And that kind of goes into almost any industry and any product or any service or commodity that you purchase. But I would stress the importance of the home inspection and not necessarily getting too tied to $300 worth as opposed to $350 or $500 versus $550. If at the end of the day you're moving into this home and it's potentially the biggest purchase of your lifetime, are you willing to sacrifice that much, $50, for, you know, credentials or the way that inspector inspects, you know, for their general inspections? So just things, and like anything else, you get online, you read some Google reviews, you find out it's due diligence on your part as far as who you end up going with. But we always like to throw that out there because I do see that a lot. And it's kind of funny, not that we're out to, we're not out to doom and gloom the inspection. There may be some inspectors who get high on, you know, finding issues with homes, but that's not what we want to do, right? But it's, if you comparatively look at the price of your home inspection versus some of the issues, or a lot of times issues that we find, and the cost of those issues that may get negotiated, or at least you're aware of, the cost of that general inspection, those repairs or those issues in most instances far exceeds the cost of that inspection. So just a point to make there. Mm-hmm. As far as the inspection goes. I think that's the last slide, is it? Is it, Nicole?
Yep. I will say, I'm going to jump in and just say real quick is that, sure, you know, I would say 95% of my clients have used PrePrecise property inspections for their inspections, and every single one of them has come back to me at some point and said, I really liked Ryan. I really liked working with Ryan. He's a really nice guy. He's very thorough. I'm really comfortable with him. I've even had people fall out of contract multiple times because of whatever reason, whether it be financing or, you know, they couldn't come to an agreement on repairs or whatever the reason is. Maybe the seller pulled the house off the market. And they always, even after that first inspection, they call you a second time for the next inspection for the next house, just because they loved working with you, they loved meeting you, and they thought you were extremely thorough. So at the beginning of your presentation here, you said that you do a non-invasive inspection, but I don't want people to misunderstand that as you don't do a thorough inspection, because you do a very thorough inspection. You're just not going to rip the house apart or cause any damage to it to do your inspection, but you are going to look at all of the components and everything that needs done and give people a very thorough, valid report of what you find, right? Yeah.
Thanks for adding that. And some of those, you know, we choose to use certain tools, and this is kind of what differentiates inspectors, right? We're not required to walk roofs. We're not required to get up into the attic and walk roof rafters or ceiling joists. There's just certain things that we're not required to do per that standard. We're not required to carry a moisture meter or use an infrared camera. So there's just those things. And I always tell everybody, you know, I'm inspecting your home as if my family and I are moving in it. You know, if there's something Laura and I would want to know that, you know, we're moving into this house, that's just my mindset when I show up on site. So
And you may not be required to do all these things, but what you're saying is that you do them anyway, and because you would do them for your own family, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's really appreciated, and I'm sure everybody on this webinar definitely gained a lot of information about home inspections. I will say really quickly, because I didn't cover it before Ryan started talking, but there is a difference between home inspections and appraisals. A home inspection is what Ryan was all just talking about. That's privately done between you and your home inspector. Obviously, we let the seller know when and where that's going to be done. It's negotiated in the contract up front, but it's a private inspection that you pay for and you get a report from your home inspector. It's much more thorough than an appraisal. An appraisal is done on the lending side, and Tori can explain more about it if you wanted to reach out to her and ask more about it. But an appraisal is done as part of the loan process, and every loan needs to have an appraisal. I'm sure that there are back cuts through that, but most loans these days get an appraisal to make sure that when they're lending you $100,000 for a new house, or whatever amount of money it is for a new house, that it's worth what you're paying for. And so that appraiser is going to come in and they're going to take a quick 15 to 20 minute walkthrough of the house, take a few photos, do some research on the back end, and make sure that the house is in the condition it needs to be for you to buy it. Every once in a while, an appraiser will come back and say, we do need a repair here. Or if it's an FHA and there's peeling paint, they're going to be like, well, this is an FHA loan. We can't have peeling paint. You have to repair that. One time I had an appraiser say, we need a structural engineer certificate on the wall in the basement. But that's kind of rare. For the most part, they don't look at what needs to be repaired. Like Ryan may see some things that definitely need to be taken care of. Anything you want to add to that, either one of you? No? Okay, cool. Covered it. All right, so moving back to this process. So recap really quickly. You're going to meet with your realtor. You're going to get a pre-approval. You're going to find a house. You're going to go under contract for your house. You're going to have your home inspection done. Now, I do want to say, from the time you go under contract on your house to the time you get your keys is typically, these days, 45 days. In a better market, sometimes we can do 30 days depending on the loan, but I like to tell everybody about 45 days. So if you go under contract May 1st for your house, you're going to probably get your keys by June 15th. And that's all set up in the contract in advance. So we got through your home inspection. You got your report back from Ryan. Ryan's going to send me a special realtor's report, and you're going to get a different report that has a lot more in it. And we're going to talk. And we're going to say, we're going to talk about all the things that you liked or didn't like about the home inspection. Most of the time, we're looking for major material defects. We're looking for big ticket items, safety things, things that are not easily taken care of in a house. Remember, you're buying a used house. This is not unless you're building brand new, in which case I still suggest you get a third-party home inspection. But unless you're building a brand new house, there's going to be things in this house that are not going to be perfect, that are going to be maintenance things that you're going to need to take care of. But what we're looking for in this home inspection are bigger things, major material defects, the plumbing issue, an electrical issue, a roof issue that would be a big fix. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to negotiate that contract. Now, remember earlier when I said that the contract was subject to you accepting the house in its condition after you had the home inspection? This is that point where there's a point of no return. And it's when we negotiate the repairs. Once we negotiate the repairs and you agree and the seller agree that these repairs are going to be done, or this amount of money is going to be taken off the home, or maybe you're moving forward without repairs, we're going to remove that contingency from the contract, and then you are locked into a solid, official, ratified contract at that point. So there's no turning back. If you got cold feet, you would lose your earnest money, which we haven't really talked about, but earnest money is kind of like a security deposit. It's your money. It gets applied towards your down payment or your closing costs, but you have to give that money up front when you go buy a house. But you would lose that, and you could face the possibility of legal issues down the road. And at that point, I would tell you, consult with an attorney. So I'm not trying to scare you, but I am saying that this point, this negotiations of the home repairs is the point of no return. From there, you're moving forward, you're locked in. Unless something out of your control happens, you're buying the house. That's the way it works. I just said something that I reminded myself I wanted to talk about, and it had to do with earnest money. Oh, costs associated with buying a house. There's a few costs out of pocket up front that you're going to need to pay outside of the lending. And I just want to tell you what those are. Your home inspection, I always tell people average of $500. I don't think Ryan charges $500, but I like to tell people worst case scenario, you're going to spend about $500. If you're going to do a general inspection, a radon inspection, and a pest inspection, which are the three most common, it's going to be about $500-ish. Right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Around there?
Yeah, and every inspector charges a little differently, but it's mostly based off of square footage, okay, and the age of the home, okay?
So that's a cost that these buyers are going to need up front, out of pocket from their bank account. They're going to have to pay that cost. They're also going to have to pay their earnest money cost up front. Now, again, this earnest money is applied towards your closing costs or your down payment, but it's money that you still have to pay up front, and it's held at the title company until you close. So it's still money out of pocket up front. And that's going to be about another $500 to $1,000. Depending on the price range of the house. If it's less than $150, we can get away with $500. If it's more than $150, you typically need to put about $1,000 of earnest money in the account. So we've got your home inspection, we've got your earnest money. The last thing that you're going to need to pay out of pocket up front is your appraisal fee. Now, I know this is part of lending, but you are going to be charged for this appraisal up front, and you will have to talk to Tori on how that gets included in the loan at closing, or if anything like that happens at closing. But it's still money that you have to pay for either on a credit card or cash or debit card up front. So we've got about $1,500 there that's going to come out of pocket up front between your home inspection, your appraisal, and your earnest money. So definitely something to consider moving forward, is these are some things that you're going to need to have. If you're saving up for down payment and you've got $5,000 saved up for your down payment, just know that you do need another $1,500 for these extra things, unless you're in like a zero down program, but you still need $1,500 for these things. So anything I'm missing so far on that stuff? No? Cool. All right, good. Glad we're getting somewhere. I'm going to move on then, and we're going to kind of wrap this up. But let's say we get through your home inspections. At the same time, you're making your loan application and you're getting all that stuff done before your home inspections. Once we get through those first like 2 weeks of the contract and we have your home inspections done, you've done your loan application, from that point until closing, it's pretty mild. You almost get a little anxious because you're not sure what's going on. You might be hearing from your lender a lot, actually, saying, I need this from you, I need that from you. Tori's going to send you an update every Tuesday and Friday by email or by phone call. At the same time, the sellers are working on those repairs. But this is all going on a lot behind the scenes, and a lot of times we don't need you to go through a lot of these things, so you're just kind of hanging out and waiting for things to close. If there are a lot of repairs that need to be done, I believe, and I don't usually advertise this out, but if there are a lot of repairs that need to be done, and quite a few of them were done, I know that you can have like a separate, smaller inspection with Ryan. I'm not sure what your cost is on that. You'll have to let me know, where you can come back and kind of just check over things and make sure that if repairs were done, that to your knowledge, they were done appropriately and properly. Am I right, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it really just depends on, we like to help our clients out, and if we can swing out to the house and run through that repair list. If it were 20 items long and it's an hour away, it's there's going to be a travel trip charge. But if we can help our clients out by doing that, then we try not to charge anything.
Well, I didn't want to advertise your services for free or anything, because that's not my goal here. But I did want to say that if there were, and I know a lot of people are more comfortable, if they weren't sure who Joe Schmo from ABC Plumbing was, and they just want to make sure that it wasn't put on backwards or whatever, you can always call Ryan and work something out with him to come out and check everything out. But let's say we move forward to closing. We're going to hear from Tori. We're going to say the appraisal went well. We're going to hear from the sellers, and they're going to tell us that all the repairs are done and the receipts are sent. We're going to schedule our final walkthrough. We're going to make sure all those repairs were done. We're going to see that with our own eyes. Tori's going to schedule a closing. There is a difference between closing and title transfer. So when you go into closing, you're going to sign all of your documentation. You're going to show up with your check or wire transfer your money for your down payment. And you're going to sign all of your documents. And a lot of people think that as soon as they sign their documents and they've handed over the money, they're like, hey, I've paid. The house is mine. But it doesn't work like that. Usually it's the same day. Sometimes it's the next day. Rarely do we have a few days in between. But once you close and you sign your documents, you're done. You don't have anything left to do. But the title company, who is the person who's not on this call, that's just as important as the lender and the home inspector, they're going to take all of your documentation to the courthouse, or right now, because of the coronavirus, they're going to e-file it. And once it's e-filed with the courthouse, that means that the courthouse has changed the official title from the previous owner's name to your name. And at that point, that's when you get your keys. So the house is yours. And that's always the fun part. Woohoo, right? So I hope that kind of told you a little bit about the process and what you can expect, throughout this whole thing. Real quickly, before I go into questions, I just wanted to talk to you about the current market, and I'm sure a lot of people really want to hear about what's going on. So the coronavirus has taken a toll or an effect on the housing market right now. It would be irresponsible for me to tell you that it hasn't. I will say, I feel like it's only made a dent on the lending side of things. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. But as far as the housing market itself goes, I don't know about you, Ryan, but I am slammed. I'm still super busy. I feel like there's still people bidding wars for these houses, and they're still selling for top dollar. So this is nothing like the 2008 market crash. That was a housing recession. That was a housing market recession that happened because of the housing market, I really think, in a lot of ways. Where we're at right now is the housing market is secondary to everything else going on. The housing market's just kind of following along and being dragged along to what everything else is going on in the world. So there are some lending issues going on. There are some programs that might have been a good program for you that aren't going to be available for now, for a month or 2 or 6 months, maybe a year. It might be a year. I don't know. It just depends. But there are some lending programs that aren't available. However, if you were planning on doing maybe a 0 down loan program and now you have to do an FHA 3.5% down program, use your tax return. There is nothing that says that you can't get your tax return money back and use that money towards a down payment on a house. I am 100% positive that you can use that money towards a house. So there are still ways out there and things that you can do. If you are not ready to buy a house today, you call Tori, you come up with a game plan with her so that 6 months from now, you're ready to buy a house. The worst thing that you can do is, and excuse my language, but you can kind of be like a toot in the wind and not know what you need to do so that 6 months from now, you're ready to buy. Your best thing that you could possibly do is to reach out to me or reach out to Tori and say, I'd like to buy a house. I don't know if I'm ready right now, but I do want to buy a house in the next 6 to 12 months or even the next 2 years. Can you go over with me where I'm at and what do I need to do to get there? Because if you're just, like I said, like a toot in the wind and you don't know what to do, you're never going to get there. You need to talk to somebody who can get you there. And last but not least, thank you all for joining in. I think we had quite a few people on this, and I know we're running out of time here. So are there any questions? I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop sharing. Hey, guys. I don't see any questions here yet. So if you do have any questions, feel free to contact me and or Tori. My number was all over that stuff. And we will definitely help you get to where you need to go. So that's all. Anything else from you guys?
No, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend. Try to get outside. It is a beautiful day outside. Thanks, Ryan and Tori and Laura, for joining us. And you guys enjoy your quarantining.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.